Chapter 10:16. Ningxi touched her chin. What's the rush? That guy should be the one rushing. When we enter the international market, Dai Wei's reputation will be ruined. But we still have to solve the problem at hand. After all, it's the same person's work, and there are too many similar styles. Even the style of the materials is the same. To those who don't know the truth, it's easy to believe the media's one-sided story. Gong Shangzi, who was standing at the side, said, "Boss, I've actually thought of this as well. Although my designs have changed a lot compared to the past, I've always liked Lin Fengmian, Zhang Daqian, Qi Baishe, and a few other classic painters and calligraphers. Therefore, no matter if it's the past or present works, most of them have been used as inspiration. In the end, Dai Wei took advantage of this and made a big deal out of it. So, I'm thinking that our new season's design should use elements that no one has ever used before. It's our exclusive Hua elements. If that's the case, I'm afraid we'll have to ask a master to customize the design for us, right?" Ningxi couldn't help but think, but it's a bit risky to ask a contemporary calligrapher to customize it. Yes, so it must be a very famous master. Ningxi thought for a moment and said after a while, "Now that you mention it, I think of someone. Song Jin, Master Song. I went to his art exhibition once, and it was amazing. Unfortunately, Old Song is now living in seclusion in the mountains and can't accept any more commissions." Gong Shangzi said excitedly, "Boss, you're thinking of the same thing as me. I'm thinking of Old Song. I'm his loyal fan too. Many years ago, before he retired, I spent 3 years of my savings to buy one of his paintings. Unfortunately, that painting was later lost when the landlord kicked it out. And now, you can't buy any of his new works in the market anymore." "So, you mean to ask Old Song to come out of seclusion?" Ningxi asked. "Although it's difficult, I want to try." Gong Shangzi nodded, his eyes filled with determination. "A long time ago, I hoped that I could work with Old Song one day. It's a kind of obsession, and it's also a wish of mine. Whether it succeeds or not, then let's try. I'll go with you some other day." Is it really possible?" Gong Shangzi was a little surprised. After all, he knew it was very risky this time, but he still persevered because of his obsession. Of course, the most important thing for a designer is passion. Passion. Since Ms. Song's work can make you burn, of course, I will try my best to help you," Ningxi said and turned to Qiao Weilan. "Director Qiao, what do you think?" Qiao Weilan thought for a while and said, "Although the possibility is not high, we might as well give it a try. People like Mr. Song rely on affinity. Maybe you are lucky enough to meet him. Even if you don't, we have other alternatives." "All right, it's settled then." Ningxi made a decision. "Then I'll have to trouble the colleagues in the PR department to deal with these messy reports." "Yes, I have." Qiao Weilan nodded. Ningxi had to sigh. It was good to have a professional at home. Qiao Weilan had set up a strong public relations team early in the morning, just for this day. Chapter 10:17. If Dai Wei could slander them, they could do the same to him. Under Qiao Weilan's planning, the public opinion soon changed. Overnight, the headlines of major fashion magazines and newspapers began to occupy the headlines. Dai Wei is still upset about losing the Golden Top Award and accuses the other party of plagiarism. History's quality plummets, and there are many flaws. Is Dai Wei running out of ideas? Chu Guanyang, the first Chinese designer on the Golden Top Award, supports ZX. Zhe Ling publicly challenges history. "I'm looking forward to the next season's new products." Moreover, Ningxi specially told them to stick to the words, running out of ideas, and poke at Dai Wei's sore spot. The public was easily led. Compared with before, Dai Wei's works were indeed fewer and fewer, and the quality was getting more and more uneven. Therefore, this kind of opinion was soon accepted by a large number of people. Because Zhe Ling had directly issued a challenge, everyone's focus was on the next season's new product. History could not find any concrete evidence of Zhe Ling's plagiarism and was instead accused of running out of ideas, so they had no choice but to accept the challenge. The war of public opinion came to an end. At night, in the famous high-altitude, revolving restaurant in the capital, Guan Ziyao invited Lu Xinyan to dinner. Ever since she returned to China, Lu Xinyan had been sticking to her and playing with her every few days. but she hadn't contacted her for a long time. Guan Xiao noticed this and took the initiative to ask her out. Xinyan, did Ningxi make things difficult for you last time? I've already apologized to her in person. It's all my fault. If she still blames you, just tell her to come to me. Guan Xiao said with concern. Lu Xinyan was stunned when she recalled the situation that day, and then she quickly said, no, she wouldn't make things difficult for me even for my brother's sake. Don't worry, big sister Xiao. That's good. Guan Xiao nodded and asked casually, how's the agent you mentioned last time? What else can we do? Since Ningxi has put it that way, it's impossible. But I'm making a new plan recently. I don't know if it will succeed. Lu Xinyan sighed. Actually, there are many brands like this. Have you ever thought of changing one? Guan Xiao asked tentatively. Another restaurant? Yes. Have you heard of History? This brand is also very good, and it's more effective. I helped you contact the person in charge there. There shouldn't be any problem. If you are willing to do it, the other party is very welcome. Guan Xiao said. Hearing this, Lu Xinyan rested her chin on her hand, looking uninterested. I've heard of it, but I still prefer Ziling's clothes. But lately, Ziling's reputation doesn't seem to be very good. That, I've also heard about it. It's completely groundless. I've seen most of the clothes from these two shops. The style is indeed very similar, but Ziling's is obviously much more sophisticated. Also, Daiwei's designs have been giving me the feeling that he's running out of ideas. I don't think he's doing well. He was rather looking forward to Ziling's response to the new products for next season. It was very likely that there would be some new tricks. Almost every work of Ziling is a pleasant surprise. Lu Xinyan beamed with joy for a while before she slumped on the table again. Sigh. Why didn't you let me represent it? That's too much. I'll be serious this time. It's not easy for me to like something. I spent so much effort researching it. Seeing that Lu Xinyan was so insistent, Guan Xiao naturally couldn't persuade her anymore. Then the two chatted casually for a while and went home. Chapter 10:18. In the evening, the crew held a simple wrap-up party at the hotel. Because there were no investors or reporters, only the crew members, the atmosphere in the room was very relaxed. You're not the first batch of newcomers I've trained, but it's very likely that you'll be the last. I won't say anything else. Thank you for your trust in me. This is my first movie, and I'm very lucky to be working with such a good and professional team. Thank you for choosing me, and thank you for your dedication and hard work. I've been really happy during this period. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to propose a toast to everyone, especially Brother Shi. There's something I need to confess to you. Actually, I was the one who released the snake. At that time, I saw you seducing the souls of all the girls in the group, and I was really angry. Who knew? Brother Shi is really tough. I'm convinced. Qi Feng finished speaking and downed his drink. But, Brother Shi, you look better in women's clothes. Men's clothes are such a waste. Qi Feng said as he looked at Ning Shi, who was dressed in women's clothes today. Nonsense. It's a waste for my brother, Shi, to wear women's clothes. You're just afraid that Brother Shi will steal the limelight from you guys in men's clothes. Ji Yumeng was the first to refute, and the other female compatriots echoed. After 3 rounds of drinking, everyone took the opportunity to speak and toast one by one. Taking advantage of the alcohol, they said all the things that they usually kept in their hearts. They joked with each other, and the atmosphere became more harmonious. After the party ended, everyone waited for the bus at the entrance of the hotel in 2s and 3s. Most of the others left one after another, and in the end, only Ning Shi, Shen Hanchen, and Kamingyu were left. Shen Hanchen couldn't help but look at Ning Shi again. He had wanted to talk to her the whole night, but he couldn't muster up the courage. At this moment, he finally looked at her and said, Senior, I hope we'll have the opportunity to work together in the future. Your acting is very good. Thank you. Ning Shi was aware of Shen Hanchen's subtle feelings for her, so she didn't say much. What's more, the devil was right next to her. Young man, please don't hurt me anymore. However, Shen Hanchen obviously didn't hear her inner voice. Hearing Ning Shi's words, Shen Hanchen looked a bit disappointed. He took out a business card from his pocket and handed it to her. Su Yimo of Shangshi Entertainment has become even worse after Long Manyun left. You can't make a name for yourself there. If you need help, call this number. Shun Hanshin gave her his manager's business card. Ningxi glanced at Shun Hanshin's business card and didn't take it. Thank you for your kindness, but I don't think I need it. Fuck. That was insane. Shun Hanshin, this fellow, was actually trying to poach her in front of her boss. Shun Hanshin immediately frowned. Why? As one of the three giants of the management company, Fengxing Media is comparable to Shangshi Entertainment. My agent is also the best gold agent in Fengxing. I've mentioned your matter to him. If you want to come over, our company can help you deal with the breach of contract. Ahem. Ningxi didn't dare to look at the devil's expression. She coughed lightly and then said righteously, I'm sorry, but Shangshi Entertainment has a very special meaning to me. It has my dreams, my hopes, and my love. It's irreplaceable, so I won't leave it. Chapter 10:19. Special meaning? Shun Hanshin was still unwilling to give up. He didn't understand why she was so attached to Shangshi Entertainment. Also, why did Ningxi sound like she was confessing to someone? Shun Hanshin was about to ask when a taxi stopped by. Ningxi was afraid that Shun Hanshin would say something shocking again, so she hurriedly got into the car. I'm leaving now. Bye-bye. He deliberately said these words to Ningxi in front of Kumingyu. He wanted to prove his strength and remind Kumingyu that he was not worthy of Ningxi. He didn't expect that he would be rejected by Ningxi so directly in the end. Platinum Palace. Ningxi arrived first. After a while, Kumingyu also came back. As soon as she saw her boss, Ningxi immediately jumped up to him and asked for praise. Hey boss, did I do well? I want a reward. Lu Tingxiao gazed at the girl's smiling face, put his broad palm on the back of her head, and kissed her hard. The moon was bright, the night was charming, and the breeze didn't cool the gradually warming air. Clang! There was a sudden loud noise behind them. Lu Tingxiao and Ningxi turned around subconsciously. Then, the two of them saw that Lu Jingli had been standing there without them noticing. He seemed to have been holding a large pot of hot pot in his hands earlier. At this moment, everything had fallen to the ground and was a mess. His handsome face was full of cracks. At this moment, Lu Tingxiao was still Kumingyu, so it was obvious that Lu Jingli must have misunderstood them. Jingli, listen to me. However, Lu Jingli covered his ears as soon as Ningxi started to explain. Xiong began to roar. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. My brother is handsome, rich, mature, knowledgeable, talented, gentle, and considerate. He's one of the top 10 husbands of the century, and he even got a cute little bun for free. Not to mention all the women in the city. Even I want to marry him. But you actually did such an infuriating thing. Cici, I was wrong about you. Ningxi looked at the little koi fish in front of her with a frown. Well, brother, calm down. Calm down. How can I calm down? With that, Lu Jingli turned to Kumingyu, who was standing next to Ningxi. His eyes were burning with anger. Bastard! Even if you want to seduce my sister-in-law, don't you know who I am? You even dare to seduce my sister-in-law. Today, I'm going to beat you until you can't have sex. He couldn't do it before Lu Jingli rushed to Kumingyu. Ningxi hurriedly dodged and parried Lu Jingli's attack with a palm. Lu Jingli, calm down. He is... Before Ningxi finished her words, Lu Jingli howled again with an expression of grief and indignation. Oh God, there was no justice in this. You're actually protecting this adulterer. Ningxi held her forehead powerlessly. She really couldn't communicate with this guy. She waved her hand and said, Fine, fine, fine. I won't protect you. I won't protect you. You can hit me. Hit him. Go and make him impotent. Go. As Ningxi spoke, she deliberately stepped aside to make it easier for him to court death. Lu Jingli immediately got up and continued to pounce on Kumingyu. He really focused on his lower body. Then, ow! With a miserable wail, the little koi fish's hands were locked by the man before it could touch the corner of the man's clothes. He skillfully put his hands behind his back. Chapter 10:20. After that, the adulterer that Lu Jingli mentioned was like a roundworm in his stomach. He could always predict what he was going to do in the next second, and then easily break all of his attacks and suppress him completely. After being beaten up for the nth time, Lu Jingli finally howled, "Brother, let go, let go, let go." The way he beat him was so skillful and smooth. He was definitely his brother. Ningxi's mouth twitched and she shook her head. "I tried to stop you, but you just had to do it." Xiaobao had found out that Kamingyu was Lu Tingxiao through his special observation skills, and she had found out from Xiaobao's reaction and temperament. But Lu Jingli, he had found out after he was beaten up. Lu Jingli covered his wrist and kept blowing at it. "When did you stop me? Couldn't you have just told me that he was my brother?" Ningxi rolled her eyes at him. "You started howling as soon as I opened my mouth. I should have had a chance to tell you." Lu Jingli had a big heart. He quickly forgot about being beaten up by his brother and began to circle around his brother with a face full of excitement. "So natural, so realistic. Your disguise is so good. If I hadn't been smart, I would have been fooled." "Ningxi, how are you smart? You only found out after being beaten up like this." Lu Jingli's expression suddenly became serious, and his tone became much more serious. He looked at Lu Tingxiao worriedly and asked, "Big brother, what happened to you? Are you going to do something so important and urgent that you can't show your face?" Lu Tingxiao's eyes were filled with worry. Lu Tingxiao thought for a while and felt that Lu Jingli was right. "Yes." Lu Jingli was immediately angry and said unhappily, "What is it? Brother, you always hide everything from me and don't share the burden with me." Lu Tingxiao said, "I can't." Lu Jingli said, "How do you know you can't if you don't tell me?" Lu Tingxiao said, "I'm going to film with your sister-in-law." Lu Jingli was speechless for a full 10 seconds before he came back to his senses. His brother had gone through so much trouble to do something so important, urgent, and secretive. He was going to film with Ningxi? This dog food came too suddenly, like a dog tornado. Lu Jingli clutched his chest in agony. "If I die one day, it will be because of your dog food. Bastard. No wonder you've been elusive recently. I thought you were doing something, but it turns out you're in love. Fuck. You made me think that you want to save the world. So I took the initiative to work overtime to help you with so much work. I'm so tired that my little face is haggard. Uncle, do you have hot pot for supper? Can I have a meal with you?" Behind the three of them, a voice that sounded like it had just woken up sounded. The smell of the hot pot was so strong that it even drifted into his room. Therefore, Jiang Mai, who was sleeping on the bed, directly followed the smell to his room. "Eat my ass. All of them," Lu Jingli said angrily. Then, he felt that something was wrong. "Wait, kid. Why are you so calm? You know, he's your uncle?" Lu Jingli looked at the man whose arm was held intimately by Ningxi. "I know." Jiang Mai nodded in a daze. "Fuck. Why am I the only one who doesn't know? It was too unfair. Are you discriminating against me? But how did you know?" Lu Jingli said angrily. Chapter 10:21. I found out when I visited the crew the next day. Jiang Mai yawned, scratched his head and answered honestly. However, as soon as Jiang Mai finished his words, Ningxi's face changed. "Aha!" Ningxi narrowed her eyes and glanced at Jiang Mai. Then she moved her fingers and walked to Jiang Mai step by step. "Golden Retriever, come here." I won't come here." Jiang Mai, who had just woke up instantly when he saw Ningxi's dangerous expression. He regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. "Oh no, I said the wrong thing. Why didn't you tell me?" Ningxi roared with her hands on her hips. Then she pounced on Jiang Mai and began to beat him. "I was forced to do it. My uncle threatened me. Why didn't you blame my uncle for beating me?" "Ouch, don't hit my face." Lu Jingli was comforted to see Jiang Mai, who was also beaten. Finally, he had someone to keep him company. After a while, the four of them sat together at the table. In addition to the four of them, of course, Little Bun was also there. Looking at Xiaobao, who was not surprised to see Kamingyu and Mama holding hands, Lu Jingli was even sadder. Sure enough, Xiaobao also knew. He was the last one to know. However, Lu Jingli soon regained his spirit because Ningxi had made them another hot pot. Although he had broken a pot and was beaten up, he had made a lot of money in exchange for a hot pot made by little Cece herself. Ningxi adjusted the base and then went to her room to get some bottles and cans. Then, Ningxi sat next to Lu Tingxiao and began to apply it on his face one by one. Lu Tingxiao cooperated as usual. Jiang Mai buried his head in his food and said, "Out of sight, out of mind." Lu Jingli was speechless and pursed his lips. "Little Cece, what are you doing? Why are you applying something for a woman on my brother?" Ningxi rolled her eyes at him. "What do you mean by that? A man's face is also very important, okay? Besides, this is a set of men's skincare products that I specially bought for your brother. He must feel uncomfortable covering his face for too long, so I'll give him a massage. Aya, it feels so good." When Little Bun, who was at the side, heard this, he immediately raised his head and used his finger to poke his little face, looking at Mama with anticipation. Ningxi immediately smiled and reached out to touch the little bun's soft little face. "MHM, MHM, MHM. Baby's little face feels even better, Lu Jingli. I think I'm full." Jiang Mai said that ever since he learned that Lu Tingxiao had disguised himself to accompany Ningxi to film with her, he had become numb to everything. He didn't even have the slightest bit of temper when he lost. The enemy was just too cruel. After wiping Lu Tingxiao's face, Ningxi asked Jiang Mai suspiciously while feeding Little Bun, "Golden hair, how did you find out that Kamingyu is Lu Tingxiao? He actually discovered it earlier than me and Xiaobao." "This is simply illogical." Jiang Mai was about to speak when a cold gaze suddenly locked on him from the opposite side. He didn't dare to say that it was because he and Zhuang Ku'er were lovey-dovey that Lu Tingxiao lost control of himself due to jealousy and was discovered by him. I just found it by chance. Why do you ask so many questions? You've already beaten me up." Jiang Mai said perfunctorily and then began to eat crazily. Damn it, it's not easy to get food. It's torturous both mentally and physically. Chapter 1022. The next day, Ningxi woke up early in the morning and changed into a set of light clothes. Today, she had an appointment with Gong Shangzi to go to the Peach Blossom Village to visit the master of Chinese painting, Song Jin. Because the Peach Blossom Village was a bit far away, about 3 to 4 hours by car, and the roads in the village were not good, the car could not drive in. So Ningxi decided not to drive herself. Instead, she bought a ticket and went on a long-distance bus. When she was at the studio, Ningxi had already studied Song Jin's strategy with Gong Shangzi. It included all of Elder Song's life information and works, especially his personality and hobbies. Unfortunately, the results of the research were not very optimistic. As the bus gradually left the city, Ningxi leaned against the back of the chair and looked at the dense information in the notebook with a headache. Sigh, it is indeed a bit difficult. At Elder Song's level, he has basically jumped out of the 3 realms and no longer belongs to the 5 elements. It's really hard to please him. Gong Shangzi, who was also browsing through Song Jin's works on his iPad, muttered, "Elder Song is living alone now. He's all alone, so there's no chance of getting anything from the people around him. Worst of all, Elder Song especially hates it when people disturb his peace. It's almost impossible to use money or other worldly things to curry favor with him. Tisk, everyone has a weakness. It's impossible that he doesn't have any flaws. It's useless to just talk on paper. Let's see him in person first." Okay. On the bus, Ningxi slept with her head tilted. When she woke up, it was almost time to go. Because Ningxi and Gong Shangzi got off at the last stop, there were only the 2 of them left on the bus. It seemed that this place was really deserted. But it was no wonder, otherwise the scenery would not be so primitive. Wow, the scenery here is so beautiful. Looking at the green peach forest outside the window, Ningxi suddenly became energetic and couldn't help but exclaim. Gong Shangzi nodded. "Even the air is so fresh. Oh my, this is pure air without any smog. I want to take a few more breaths." Ningxi squinted her eyes and took a few deep breaths. "When we enter the village, the scenery will be even better," Gong Shangzi said with some yearning. "Tisk, Elder Song really knows how to enjoy life. A place like this should be very inspirational, right? As the two talked, they arrived at the last stop. Ningxi quickly grabbed her backpack and got off the bus with Gong Shangze. How do we go after that? Ningxi looked at the endless fields and peach forest in front of her, feeling relaxed and happy. She thought that even if she couldn't invite anyone, she could just treat it as an outing. If there was a chance, she must bring Xiaobao over to play. Last time when she went camping with Lu Tingxiao, she didn't take Xiaobao with her. Ningxi always felt sorry for Xiaobao, so she prepared to give Xiaobao a spring outing. Gong Shangze glanced at the GPS on his phone. First, follow this small path straight ahead. All right, let's go. Ningxi plucked a peach blossom from the roadside and walked forward in high spirits. However, half an hour later, both of them were dumbfounded. Gong Shangze, are we lost? Gong Shangze fiddled with his phone anxiously. But that's what the navigation says. So, does the GPS want us to swim over? Ningxi stared at the wide river in front of her. Gong Shangze sighed. The terrain here is complicated, and the navigation is probably inaccurate. I was careless. Left with no choice, the two of them could only continue to walk around. It was only in the evening that they finally saw a small courtyard. Chapter 10:23. Every household in the Peach Blossom Village was very far away from each other, and Song Jin lived in a particularly remote place. It was really difficult to find someone who came here for the first time. Fortunately, they finally found her today, so their trip was not in vain. Not far in front of them, there was an antique little courtyard. The chimney on the roof was emitting wisps of smoke. Behind the house was a large and dense peach blossom forest. Not far away was a sparkling paddy field. Occasionally, the sound of an old ox could be heard in the courtyard. Open up the wilderness in the south, defend one's clumsiness, and return to the garden. The Fong residence is more than 10 acres, with 8 or 9 thatched cottages. Behind the eaves of the elm and willow trees, in front of the peaches and plums. In the warm, distant village, in the ruins of smoke. TSK, looks like Elder Song is a fan of Tao Yuanming? Ningxi laughed. After running around for a whole day, Gong Shangze was about to collapse from exhaustion. But when he turned his head, Ningxi was still reciting poems in high spirits. It was really indescribable. The courtyard did not have a door. It was just a fence made of a few pieces of wood. The two slightly tidied up their appearance, then walked in front of the wooden door. "Excuse me, is Mr. Song home?" Gong Shangze called out to the courtyard. There was no movement inside. However, looking at the chimney on the roof, there must be someone at home. The two called out a few more times, and sure enough, after a while, a figure came out of the house. They saw that the person was wearing a coarse long robe, had a white beard, was hale and hearty, and had the demeanor of an immortal. After seeing Song Jin, Ningxi's heart suddenly thumped. The old man looked like he had no desires, and people without desires were the most difficult to deal with. Mr. Song. Gong Shangze was Song Jin's diehard fan. When he saw his idol, his exhaustion disappeared, and he was full of excitement. He said excitedly, "Mr. Song, I'm sorry to disturb your peace. My name is Gong Shangze, I'm a designer, and I like your works very much. You are my favorite calligrapher, and I still have your superb Tinley Frog Cry in my collection." Gong Shangze was indeed a qualified fan. He was very familiar with Song Jin's works, and the passion and excitement in his eyes were all real and pure. From Ningxi's point of view, if she had such a cute and enthusiastic fan who came all the way to see her, she should at least invite him in for a cup of tea. "There are no painters here, only an old man. Please go back." However, Song Jin's expression was very indifferent from the beginning to the end. His gaze did not seem to be looking at the two of them, but at two lifeless things. In the end, he only replied with this sentence and went straight into the house. Looking at the merciless closing of the door, Gong Shangze's face was full of disappointment. "Although I was prepared, but..." Ningxi patted him on the shoulder. "It's nothing. At least you got to see your idol." Gong Shangze perked up again. "I still want to wait a little longer." Ningxi had the same plan. Then let's wait a little longer. Maybe Elder Song will be willing to see us after seeing our sincerity. The two of them waited outside the door until sunset. Seeing that it was getting darker and darker, Ningxi sighed. God is so uncooperative. How nice it would be if there was a heavy downpour at this time. However, it was obvious that the heavens were not on their side. They waited until the end, but there was no rain. Of course, Song Jin did not change her mind either. Shangza, come back tomorrow. Any later, and we won't be able to catch the last bus. Although Gong Shangza was unwilling, he could only leave first. Chapter 1024. The next day, Ningxi and Gong Shangza once again went to the Peach Blossom Village. Because he already had experience this time, he knew how to get there, so he arrived at noon. The two of them met Song Jin on the way to the fields. Song Jin was wearing a straw hat and was transplanting rice seedlings in the fields. Song Jin's skill in transplanting seedlings was experienced and fast. At first glance, he looked exactly like an ordinary villager. Who would have thought that he was a famous Chinese traditional painting master? From the corner of his eyes, he saw that the two people from yesterday had come to visit again. Song Jin did not have any special reaction. She was still indifferently doing her own things. Ningxi had failed to get close to him yesterday, so she decided to change her routine this time. So, she went straight to the point and said, "Hello, Mr. Song. I'm Ningxi, the person in charge of Zailing Studio. This is our designer, Gong Shangza. Zailing is a clothing design company that focuses on Hua national style. Our designers like your work very much, and also because your work is very compatible with our style, we are here to talk about cooperation with you. I wonder if you can consider it?" After a short moment of silence, Song Jin straightened up and looked in Ningxi's direction. "Young man, you should find someone else. I've already said that I'm just an old man. I can't help you." Ningxi scratched her head speechlessly. Damn, why is it this sentence again? However, from this sentence, it could be seen that Song Jin had no interest in worldly affairs anymore. Who knew what could interest him? Elder Song, don't you want to reconsider? Even if you don't care about fame and fortune, don't you want your works to be passed down and display greater value? Ningxi asked tentatively. Hearing this, Song Jin's figure seemed to freeze. Could there be a chance? Ningxi immediately looked over nervously, but the other party bent down and continued transplanting. All right, he failed again, however. It was no wonder. Song Jin had already reached the top and was famous both in China and abroad. Why would she care about cooperating with a clothing company? Ningxi and Gong Shangza took turns trying to persuade him, but still returned empty-handed. Before leaving, Ningxi put the documents of the studio at the door. Seeing Gong Shangza's listless look, Ningxi patted his shoulder and said, "Don't be discouraged. Liu Bei invited Zhuge Liang to visit the thatched cottage 3 times. Let's fight tomorrow. Maybe it'll be done tomorrow." In the end, he failed again on the 3rd day. After returning from the Peach Blossom Village, Ningxi went straight to the Platinum Gold Palace. As soon as she entered the room, Ningxi threw herself on the sofa. Oh, it's so difficult. What happened? Lu Tingxiao was sitting on the sofa reading the newspaper. Seeing the girl in such a state as soon as she came in, he touched the girl's hair and asked, "That's the Chinese painting master I told you about. It's so hard to invite him." Ningxi murmured. Song Jin. Yeah. He was completely unmoved by force or persuasion. The key is that he has no desires and nowhere to start. Ningxi couldn't help but complain. It's unlikely that you'll be able to invite Ms. Song. I suggest you find someone else, Lu Tingxiao said. All right, since even Lu Tingxiao said so, it was probably hopeless, Ningxi sighed. I also think it's impossible. Let's try for the last time tomorrow. That unlucky child, Gong Shangza, had been staying indoors for a long time. His body was too weak, and he had fallen sick from running around for the past few days. Tomorrow I have to go alone. Oh no. Tomorrow is Saturday. I'll just take Little Bun on a spring outing. Perfect. Chapter 1025. As soon as Ningxi finished her words, A soft little bun ran downstairs and threw itself into her arms, his face shining with expectation. Seeing Xiaobao so excited at the mention of a spring outing, Ningxi felt a little guilty. Sorry, Bun, I haven't taken you out for a long time. Let's go tomorrow, and we'll go alone. Going with Mama without Papa? When little Bun heard this, his eyes lit up even brighter, almost dazzling Ningxi's eyes. Ningxi said, yes, no big light bulb. Lu Tingxiao, isn't this retribution coming a little too fast? What? Do you have a problem with that? Ningxi looked at Lu Tingxiao and raised her eyebrows. Lu Tingxiao said helplessly, no. This girl knew that he had to go on a business trip tomorrow and wouldn't be able to go. Okay, then it's decided. Xiaobao was so excited that he couldn't sleep the whole night since he decided to go on a spring outing with Mama. It was the first time in his life that he would go on a spring outing with Mama. The next morning, Xiaobao got up and began to pack and prepare for the spring outing. The family of 3 packed up and were ready to go separately. At this time, a man suddenly rushed over from the opposite villa. Wait, me too. Me too. Lu Jingli, why are you here? Ningxi looked at him in surprise. My brother said you're going on a spring outing. There must be a barbecue. There must be a picnic. I want to go too. Lu Jingli looked like he was about to drool. Ningxi was speechless. Are you here for the spring outing or for food? For food, of course. Sister-in-law, the barbecue you made last time was delicious. I won't eat for free. I'll be your backpack's coolie. Lu Jingli said with a flattering face. It's in the wilderness. Let Jingli go with you, Lu Tingxiao said. Okay. Ningxi thought it was good to have someone to help her backpack. She did bring a lot of things today. Do you mind taking one more person? Jiang Mai's voice came from behind. Looking at Jiang Mai, who had popped out of nowhere, Lu Jingli was annoyed that there was another person stealing his food. What the fuck? Jiang Mai, why are you everywhere? It's one thing to freeload off a midnight snack, but you're also freeloading off a spring outing. Didn't you say we were going to the wilderness? There shouldn't be anyone in the wilderness, right? I've been suffering from crowd syndrome recently, and I get a headache whenever I see a lot of people. I need a place like this to relax, Jiang Mai said in a weak and worried tone. The corners of Ningxi's mouth twitched. What the hell is crowd syndrome? It's the problem of people like us who are too popular. It's not your fault that you don't understand. Jiang Mai sighed. Ningxi, his hands were itching to beat someone up. In the end, Ningxi and Xiaobao became 3 people and then 4 people. So be it. One can help carry the bag, and the other can carry Xiaobao when he's tired. This is the rhythm of Pigsy and the White Dragon Horse. Pretty good. After making the decision, Ningxi walked up to Lu Tingxiao and said goodbye. Honey, let's go. As soon as Lu Jingli and Jiang Mai heard Ningxi speak in such a soft and sweet tone, they knew it was time to show off. They immediately quickened their steps and walked further away. What the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve over. Chapter 10:26. Well, have fun. Lu Tingxiao patted the girl's head. Ningxi looked at Lu Tingxiao, who still had to work overtime on the weekend, and suddenly felt sorry for him. Sigh, I suddenly feel sorry for leaving you alone. What should I do? Although she was originally going to work today, the atmosphere now seemed to have completely turned into an outing. Lu Tingxiao pinched the girl's soft earlobes and whispered, Make it up to me in the future. Ningxi blinked her eyes. Why don't I make it up to you now? That's enough. There are still minors here. Lu Jingli howled not far away. Ningxi tiptoed and kissed Lu Tingxiao on the cheek, then waved goodbye to the child's father. It was the first time for Little Bun to take a bus like this. He was very excited along the way, especially when they arrived at the Peach Blossom Village. Looking at the scenery in front of him, the little guy's eyes were full of curiosity and light. Although Ningxi had seen the same scenery 3 times and was already numb to it, it was a new experience because she was with Little Bun this time. The scenery is so beautiful. There is no trace of human activity at all. The most important thing is that there is no one here. Cool. Oh. Jiang Mai looked at the green mountains and clear waters in the distance and screamed. It seemed that he had been holding back for a long time. Hey, Did you tell Brother Ming when you came out today? Ningxi asked casually. Jiang Mai, why should I tell him? Ningxi. Lei Ming didn't know what sin he had committed in his previous life to be Jiang Mai's agent in this life. Ningxi didn't have the heart to do that, so she sent a text message to Lei Ming to tell him. Wow, 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 delicious. It's so sweet. While Ningxi was not paying attention, Lu Jingli had already climbed up the tree. He was picking a few peach blossoms and eating the honey in the stamens. Sure enough, he was a foodie. Ningxi also picked some and gave it to Little Bun. Little Bun licked a little, her eyes sparkling. Let's go. The scenery in front is even better. Ningxi had not come here for nothing. She had already figured out the nearby route and knew the best scenery and the most fun places. It was no problem for her to be a good tour guide. Along the way, the four of them went sightseeing. At noon, Ningxi took them to a beautiful peach forest to settle down and start a picnic. Lu Jingli finally waited for the moment he had been waiting for. He quickly set up the barbecue rack that he had been carrying all the way, and then took out all the ingredients and arranged them properly. Ningxi was instructing Jiang Mai to spread the tablecloth and set the tableware. After that, she asked the two of them to get busy, and she took little Bowsy to catch butterflies and rabbits. Golden Fur, are you done yet? Come here. There is a rabbit here. Go catch it. We'll have an extra meal today. Lying on the ground, Jiang Mai watched the big and the small jumping not far away. Only then did he suddenly realize that he had fallen into a trap. He was simply here to be a coolie. No wonder Lu Tingxiao didn't object when he said he wanted to come over. Catch my ass. I'm not a dog. You can even catch rabbits. Jiang Mai snorted. Useless. Help me take care of Xiao Bao. This young master will go catch it, Ningxi said and ran away. After a while, Ningxi came back with a fluffy white rabbit in her hand. Jiang Mai was speechless. Are you a fucking woman or not? Seeing the rabbit in Mama's hand, little Bowsy immediately ran over excitedly. Ningxi squatted down and said softly to little Bowsy, Do you want to touch it? It's so fluffy and soft. Chapter 10:27. It was Little Bun's first time seeing a real rabbit. He hesitated for a moment and then reached out his little hand to touch the rabbit. After that, Little Bun's eyes widened. It was soft, furry. Ningxi couldn't help laughing at Little Bun's lively expression. Haha, was it fun? Little Steamed Bun nodded repeatedly, fondling it lovingly. The rabbit was still kicking when it was in Ningxi's hand. But after Little Bun touched it, it quieted down. Wow, what a fat rabbit. Quick, roast it. Lu Jingli said excitedly. When Little Bun heard this, she immediately glared at Lu Jingli and hugged the rabbit. Roast your head. You only know how to eat. Ningxi snapped. Sister-in-law, didn't you say you caught it for dinner? Lu Jingli said innocently. Ningxi said, Xiao Bao likes it. Don't eat it now. Xiao Bao nodded vigorously. Don't eat the rabbit. It's mine. Lu Jingli. It belongs to my stomach. Did you bring the first aid kit? Ningxi asked. Jiang Mai frowned. Are you hurt? I told you not to catch the rabbit. Ningxi. The rabbit is hurt. Okay. Jiang Mai. Ningxi took out the first aid kit and began to bandage the rabbit. Wild rabbits ran very fast and were very alert. How could she catch it so easily? Because one of the rabbit's legs was injured, she caught it. Little Bun touched the rabbit's head with a distressed look, as if it was him who was in pain. After the bandage, Ningxi carefully put the rabbit in Little Bun's arms. The rabbit was well behaved in Little Bun's arms. Why do you have to do this? It's better to eat it directly. Lu Jingli looked distressed. Fortunately, he soon forgot about the rabbit because Ningxi began to roast it. In the woods, the fragrance of peach blossoms and the tempting aroma of food mixed together, making people salivate and hungry. As the four of them were eating, they heard squeaking footsteps behind them. Ningxi subconsciously turned her head and saw Song Jin walking towards the peach forest with a basket in her hand while leading the oxen. I was having too much fun and almost forgot about the important matter. The reason why she chose this place to have a picnic was because she found that Song Jin would usually come here for lunch after finishing her farm work. Elder Song, are you done with your work? Do you want to come over and eat with us? Ningxi asked enthusiastically. After coming here for 3 days, Ningxi was already familiar with them. In addition, she didn't have much hope this time, so her attitude was much more relaxed. Song Jin looked at them, and when her gaze fell on Xiao Bao, she said, "Thank you. I brought lunch." 10 steps away from Ningxi and the others, he sat under a tree root and began to eat his lunch. The basket was filled with simple cornbread and pickled vegetables. "Is he Song Jin?" Jiang Mai asked. On the way, Ningxi had already talked to Jiang Mai and Lu Jingli about Song Jin. "Yeah, isn't it very transcendent?" Ningxi clicked her tongue. On the side, Lu Jingli's mouth was covered in grease as he mumbled, "Even the most transcendent person has a weakness, let me tell you. For example, my brother's weakness is you, and my weakness is delicious food. Haha, you can use your brother as an example, but you? Forget it. Anyway, that's what I mean. He must have something he wants, but you haven't found it yet." Chapter 10:28. It's the same as not saying anything. If she knew what Song Jin wanted, she wouldn't be running around like a headless fly. Seeing Little Bun feeding the rabbit grass while eating by himself, Ningxi's big eyes were full of liveliness and liveliness. Ningxi held her forehead and wiped Little Bun's mouth. She was in a good mood again. She was worried that Little Bun wouldn't be able to adapt to this place, but she didn't expect him to be so good at it. She didn't feel tired at all. It seemed that she could take Little Bun out more often in the future. Nature was always the most healing. Looking at Ningxi's motherly expression, Jiang Mai's mood was indescribable. Not far away, Song Jin finished his lunch and went back to work in the fields. Ningxi and the others took a nap in the peach forest. When they got up in the afternoon, Ningxi took them to several other places to have fun. The 4 of them played happily until the evening. When they were about to go home, it suddenly rained. And the rain was getting heavier and heavier without any warning. Little Bun protected the rabbit in his arms nervously. Ningxi quickly carried Little Bun up. Lu Jingli took off his coat and wrapped Little Bun up. The 4 of them hurried out of the village. However, it was at least half an hour away from the village. With the rain, the road would be more and more difficult to walk. The situation was really bad. Ningxi was speechless. "Damn, are you kidding me? The rain didn't fall when it was supposed to, but it fell so happily when it wasn't supposed to. Where's the nearest place to hide from the rain?" Jiang Mai asked. "Only Old Song's house, but it's impossible. Old Song doesn't allow strangers to enter her house. Last time, I tried to go in and ask for some water, but she refused," Ningxi said. As they were talking, they happened to pass by Song Jin's house. Just when they were hesitating whether to ask for help, the door of the yard suddenly opened. Song Jin stood at the door and looked at them. "Come in." What? She invited them in? Was there such a good thing? "Thank you, old Mr. Song." Ningxi didn't have time to think. She hurried into the house with Little Bun in her arms. "Thank you, old Mr. Song." Jiang Mai and Lu Jingli also thanked him. Song Jin's attitude was still quite indifferent. "It's just for the sake of the child." Ningxi put the Little Bun down. "Baby, quickly thank Grandpa Song." Little Bun nodded her head. First, she let her mama carry the rabbit in her arms. Then, she took out her writing board and seriously wrote 5 words. "Thank you, Grandpa." Song Jin was only slightly stunned when she saw that Xiao Bao was using a writing board to communicate with her. However, a trace of astonishment flashed across her eyes when she saw Xiao Bao's handwriting clearly. This child is so young, but he can actually write so well. The pitter-patter of rain was incessant outside, and it seemed like it wouldn't stop anytime soon. Song Jin told them to do as they pleased and then entered the study. Lu Jingli couldn't stay still and soon got bored. He rolled his eyes and suddenly took out a deck of cards from his bag. "It's so boring. Let's play cards." "Sure." Jiang Mai agreed. "But how are we going to fight with 3 people?" Lu Jingli looked at Little Bun with a smile. "Let's teach Little Bun and let him play with us." In the study, Song Jin was originally concentrating on painting while the rain was in high spirits. Hearing this, she couldn't bear it anymore. She opened the door and waved to Xiao Bao. Child, come to Grandpa. Chapter 1029. Little Bun glanced at his mom subconsciously. Ningxi smiled and kissed Bun's little face. Go ahead. Play with Grandpa for a while. She was speechless at Lu Jingli, this swindler. She was worried about his future children. Little Bun nodded and went to the old man's room. He had just found that there were many paintings in the old man's study, so he couldn't help but look up at them. Do you like them? Song Jin asked with a rare look of gentleness when she saw the little boy staring at them. Little Bun nodded. Do you know calligraphy? Do you know how to write with a brush? Song Jin asked again. Little Bun continued to nod. Then, do you know how to draw? Song Jin asked again with a hint of imperceptible nervousness in her tone. Little Bun nodded again. Song Jin immediately spread out a blank piece of paper and made room for Little Bun. Do you want to try? Outside, Ning Shi, Lu Jingli, and Jiang Mai were playing Fight the Landlord. Lu Jingli glanced in the direction of the study and curled his lips. What's so fun about Xiaobao hanging out with an old man? He might as well come and play cards with us. My steamed Bun loves to draw. With Elder Song's attainments in Chinese painting, it's worth it to receive a few words of advice from him. What's the point of playing mahjong with you? Ning Shi said unhappily. Lu Jingli clicked his tongue. Cici, you're becoming more and more professional as a mother. After a long time, the door of the study suddenly opened and Song Jin and Little Bun came out. Song Jin, who had always looked calm and aloof, was obviously excited at this moment. She glanced at Lu Jingli and Jiang Mai and asked, which one of you is the father of the child? Lu Jingli was stunned by this sudden question and then answered subconsciously, I'm not. Song Jin immediately looked at Jiang Mai. Jiang Mai coughed and said, I'm not either. Lu Jingli continued, I'm the child's second uncle. Jiang Mai said, I'm his, cousin. Seeing Song Jin's strange expression, Ning Shi couldn't help asking, Elder Song, what's the matter? Song Jin immediately looked at Ning Shi. Are you the child's mother? Can you make the decision about this child? About the baby? What is it? Ning Shi thought for a while. Well, if it's a big deal, we should listen to the child's father. After Ning Shi finished speaking, she glanced at Little Bun, who had walked up to her, and cast a suspicious look. Baby, what's going on? Little Bun blinked with a confused look on his face. It was obvious that he didn't know either. Both Lu Jingli and Jiang Mai were confused as well. Hearing Ning Shi's words, Song Jin looked anxious and asked, Then, where is the child's father now? Can I meet him? Ning Shi felt even more strange. Just as she was about to speak, there was a knock on the door, accompanied by the pitter-patter of rain. Who would be knocking on the door at this time in the wilderness? Song Jin calmed down and walked out absent-mindedly to open the door. She saw a tall man standing outside the door. The man was wearing a black trench coat and holding an umbrella in his hand. He was standing quietly in the night wind. Chapter 1030. You are? Song Jin sized up the newcomer with a burning gaze. The man was wet and his trousers were stained with mud. However, even though he looked disheveled, his aura didn't diminish at all. Instead, he gave off a refreshing feeling. Song Jin knew many people and immediately concluded that the man in front of her was not simple. There had been many people who had come here to invite him for various reasons, but none of them had such an aura. But this person, why does he look somewhat familiar? Sorry to disturb you so late at night. I'm looking for someone, the man said. Song Jin guessed that he was looking for the 4 people who had just come in, so she let him in. Come in. Song Jin came back soon, followed by a man. Seeing who it was, Ning Shi's eyes widened, and she rushed to him. Lu Tingxiao, why are you here? I'm worried about you and the child. Seeing that she and Xiaobao were fine, Lu Tingxiao was a little relieved. Look, you're all wet. Ning Shi took out a tissue and wiped the man nervously. Lu Tingxiao said, it's okay. Lu Jingli, who was completely ignored, was displeased. Hey, are you worried about your wife and child? There's still your biological brother and nephew here. Jiang Mai, Don't bring me into this. Just ignore me. Wife and child? Song Jin was stunned. He was the child's father? No wonder he looked familiar. They did look like father and son. Mr. Song, aren't you looking for Xiaobao's father? That's him. Lu Jingli looked at Song Jin and said. Ningxi suddenly remembered to explain to Lu Tingxiao. Elder Song seems to be looking for you. It seems to be about Xiaobao. Finally seeing the child's father, Song Jin didn't beat around the bush and said directly, your son is very talented in painting. I want to take him as my disciple. Huh. Elder Song, you want to take Xiaobao as your disciple? Ningxi said in surprise. Yes. Song Jin nodded with a serious expression. She looked at Lil Bao with a burning gaze. Ningxi didn't expect Song Jin to make such a request. She didn't know how to react. Song Jin had been single all his life, had no children, and had never accepted an apprentice. When Ningxi read the information, she thought he had no intention of accepting an apprentice, so she was a little surprised. From the looks of it now, it wasn't that he had no intention of accepting disciples, but that he hadn't met anyone he wanted to accept. Elder Song must have tested Xiaobao in the study just now, which was why she had such an idea. Elder Song, who had never accepted a disciple in her life, took a fancy to him. Ningxi was full of pride. Her son was the best. In fact, even Lu Tingxiao was a little surprised. He didn't expect that Song Jin would propose to accept Ningxi as her apprentice when she just took her child out for a spring outing and took shelter from the rain here. With Song Jin's attainments, it was undoubtedly a great fortune for Xiaobao that she was willing to accept him. So Lu Tingxiao exchanged a look with Ningxi and said, We've admired you for a long time, Senior Song. Of course we can't wait to meet you. However, this still depends on the child's own opinion. Jiang Mai, we, husband and wife, aren't you a little too smooth with your words? You're not married yet. Chapter 1031. Of course. Song Jin nodded. Ningxi squatted down and asked Xiaobao, would you like to learn painting from this Grandpa Song? Xiaobao touched the fluffy white rabbit in his arms, blinked his eyes, looked at Papa, Mama, and then at the old man. Finally, under Song Jin's uneasy gaze, Xiaobao nodded. The moment the little fellow nodded, Song Jin was so excited that she almost burst into tears. Good. From now on, you are my only disciple. I will definitely pass on all my painting skills to you. Then, under the guidance of Papa and Mama, Xiaobao followed the steps of apprenticeship and served tea to Song Jin obediently, which could be regarded as a formal apprenticeship. After that, Lu Tingxiao thought for a while and said, But there is a problem. Sir, you live in a remote place. That's okay. I can move for my good disciple. I will move to a nearby place where you live. Song Jin said straightforwardly. The more he looked at Xiaobao, the more he liked him. His painting technique and skills had extremely high requirements for talent and spirituality. Originally, he did not expect to find a satisfactory successor in this life, but he did not expect God to be so kind to him. In the end, he still found this child. Ningxi didn't know what to say after hearing Song Jin's words. In order to meet this great master, she had to travel far and wide. But when it was Xiaobao's turn, Elder Song was so considerate that she went to his door to serve him. My bao is awesome. Because it was late and it was raining outside, Song Jin, who was in a good mood, asked them to stay for the night. Lu Jingli and Jiang Mai stayed in one room, and Ningxi, Lu Tingxiao, and Xiaobao stayed in another. Little Bun seemed to really like that rabbit. Even when he slept, he would hug it in his arms like a treasure. Lu Tingxiao saw the rabbit in his son's arms just now. He looked at Ningxi and asked, Where did you get the rabbit? Ningxi said proudly, I caught it. I was going to roast it, but Xiaobao likes it, so I let him play with it. Isn't it cute? It's so fluffy. It's so soft. Cute. Lu Tingxiao stretched out his broad palm and touched the rabbit's ear. Xiaobao immediately took the rabbit to Mama. It's mine. You can't touch it. Lu Tingxiao. Seeing Lu Tingxiao's depressed look, Ningxi chuckled and rubbed her head against his. Don't be sad. I'll let you touch it. Little Bun. The little fellow immediately gave the rabbit to Lu Tingxiao. Papa, you'd better touch the rabbit. Ha 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 ha. Seeing this, Ningxi held her stomach and laughed uncontrollably. Looking at his son, Lu Tingxiao sighed helplessly. Although the father and son had united the battle line and the general direction remained the same, they still fought when it was time to fight for favor. Oh, that's great. This time, in addition to the ancient martial arts teacher, our baby also has a painting teacher. He is really well-versed in both the pen and the sword, Ningxi said happily. Lu Tingxiao said, Ningxi? Lu Tingxiao suddenly called her seriously. Ningxi was confused. What's wrong? Lu Tingxiao. Thank you. Ningxi. Why are you thanking me? Lu Tingxiao. Thank you for treating Xiaobao so well. Ningxi stroked the little bun's head, her gaze gentle. Isn't it natural for me to treat my son well? Steamed bun, right? Xiaobao nodded decisively. The night was getting late. Outside the window was the pitter-patter of rain, and the air was filled with the fragrance of earth. Xiaobao gradually fell asleep and slept soundly. Chapter 1032. Ningxi laid on the bed and gently patted little bun's back. These days are really pleasant. When I retire one day, I will also find a place with such verdant hills and clear waters to live in seclusion. Are you sure? There's no electricity or Wi-Fi here. What do I need those for? You and little treasure are enough for me. Ningxi was chatting with Lu Tingxiao. At this time, there was a sudden knocking sound on the wall behind them. Then, they heard Lu Jingli's faint voice coming from next door. Please, the soundproofing here isn't good. Do you have any humanity left in the middle of the night? If you do this again, I'm going to call the police. Ningxi. Oh, sorry. I almost forgot you guys are still here. In the room next door. Lu Jingli. Jiangmai. Lu Jingli angrily bit the pillow, then hugged the quilt and rolled around on the bed. I really want to fall in love. Jiang Mai moved away from him in disdain. The next morning, Song Jin cooked porridge with side dishes and a few salted duck eggs. Probably because the ingredients were good, it tasted very fragrant and refreshing. Lu Jingli ate 5 big bowls of porridge and was not afraid of bursting to death. Elder Song, I've already arranged a place for you to stay. I'll send someone to pick you up when it's convenient for you, Lu Tingxiao said. Song Jin did not refuse and immediately agreed. Tomorrow then. I'll pack my things today. Lu Tingxiao. Okay. After they finished talking, Song Jin suddenly looked at Ningxi, who was feeding the rabbit with cabbage leaves. Girl. Here. Elder Song. Did you call me? Ningxi hurriedly responded. I agree to your request, Song Jin said after thinking for a while. Ningxi had thought that Song Jin was going to talk to her about Xiaobao. She was stunned for a moment before she realized what Song Jin was talking about. Her face was full of disbelief. You mean the cooperation with our studio? You agreed? Yes. Song Jin nodded, then looked at Little Bun and said, Thank you for allowing me to accept such a good disciple. Ningxi almost cried tears of joy. She hugged Little Bun, who was next to her, and cried, Oh, steamed Bun, you really are my little lucky star. Little Bun pursed her lips, feeling a little embarrassed by Mama's praise. After the excitement, Ningxi calmed herself down, and then she coughed slightly and asked, Elder Song, although I really hope to invite you to cooperate with us, of course, the most important thing is that you do it out of your own will. Song Jin understood what the girl meant and said, I've seen the information you left at the door. The little designer who came with you. What's his name again? Gong Shangzi. Yes, that kid's design is really good. It's not a disgrace to my reputation. Knowing that Song Jin agreed because she recognized Zhe Ling's ability, Ningxi finally felt relieved. Thank you for your appreciation, Elder Song. We won't let you down. Chapter 1033. Ningxi went to the studio to tell everyone the good news. What? Mr. Song agreed? Han Momo jumped up in excitement. Sister Shi, you're amazing. Xiao Weilan had been worrying about the selection of a master painter when Ningxi came with good news. She heaved a sigh of relief and was even more surprised. She didn't expect that she could really do it. Sister Shi, how did you do it? Boss, did you invite Mr. Song? Gong Shangza walked out when he heard the noise outside. Yeah. Didn't we leave a copy of our studio's information at Mr. Song's door? Mr. Song said he read it and praised you. He said your design was good, so it wasn't a disgrace to his reputation. Gong Shangza's eyes turned red with excitement. Boss, are you serious? Of course I'm serious. Why would I lie to you? Do your best. But the most important thing is to take care of your health. After all, your health is the key to success. You can't just stay at home and not exercise. Ningxi said worriedly. Got it. I got it, boss. I'll do my best to design and exercise. Thank you. Thank you, boss. Gong Shangza bowed with all his might. Meanwhile, at the Platinum Palace. Master, madam. The old butler greeted Yin Rui and Lu Chongshan when he saw them. Yin Rui looked at the servants who were bustling in and out and asked suspiciously, What are they doing? Young master told us to tidy up the building next to the greenhouse. Someone wants to move in, the old butler answered honestly. Someone wants to move in? Yin Rui's expression changed. Could it be that the woman wanted to move in? Yin Rui glanced at Lu Chongshan, who had obviously thought of the same thing. Had they finally moved in? Tingxiao. Yin Rui called out to her son when she saw him from afar. Lu Tingxiao heard his mother's voice and walked over. Dad, Mom, what's up? Yin Rui glared at her son. Can't I come to see you in Xiaobao? Let me ask you, what are you doing? What was he going to do with the small building? Are you going to let Ningxi move in? Lu Chongshan's face darkened. Even if the two of you are a couple now, isn't it too much for you to cohabit before marriage? Lu Tingxiao looked at his parents expressionlessly. Song Jin. What's Song Jin and Song Ming? Yin Rui didn't understand what his son meant. Lu Tingxiao said, The person who will be moving in is Song Jin, Mr. Song. What? Don't tell me it's that Chinese painting master Song Jin? Lu Chongshan asked in shock. Lu Tingxiao. HM, isn't Master Song living in seclusion in the Peach Blossom Village? Moreover, he did not see any outsiders at all. Why would he come to live here? Lu Chongshan felt that his son's lie was too ridiculous. Lu Tingxiao said, Song Jin has already accepted Xiaobao as her disciple. He agreed to move here for the convenience of teaching. Upon hearing those words, Lu Chongshan and Yin Rui were stunned. Lu Chongshan said in shock, What did you say? Song Jin accepted Xiaobao as her disciple? When did this happen? Yin Rui naturally knew who Song Jin was. She said anxiously, You damn child. Can't you just say it clearly in one go? Why did I have to ask you a question? That's why I said a few words. What's going on? Tell me clearly. Chapter 1034. How did you manage to invite Song Jin? Lu Chongshan asked, and he could not help but look excited. If he could invite Song Jin to teach Xiaobao, it would be a great thing. Most importantly, Song Jin wasn't someone who could be invited with money, so he was really curious about how his son did it. It wasn't me. Lu Tingxiao was still a man of few words. Lu Chongshan was almost driven to death by his son's bad temper. Glancing at Lu Jingli, who was humming a song, he hurriedly stopped him. Jingli, come here. I have something to ask you. Hearing his father calling him, Lu Jingli walked over hesitantly, but stood far away. Dad, what do you want? I'd rather die than get married. Yin Rui glanced at her son speechlessly. Your father and I want to ask you about Xiaobao's apprenticeship with Song Jin. Do you know about it? Yes, I was there when Xiaobao was apprenticed last night. What's wrong? Lu Jingli nodded. Really? Come on. Come and tell Mom and Dad what's going on. I'll be mad if I talk to your brother. Yin Rui hurriedly pulled Lu Jingli and asked. Lu Jingli scratched his head and said, My sister-in-law invited Song Jin to the studio for the new products of the next season, but she didn't manage to invite her. On the fourth day, yesterday, it happened to be a Saturday. The scenery there was very good, so my sister-in-law took Xiaobao there for a spring outing. My brother was on a business trip that day, so Jiang Mai and I went with him to do hard labor and have fun. My sister-in-law also caught a rabbit. She wanted to roast it, but Xiaobao liked it so much that she gave it to him to play with. Oh, How nice it would be for me to roast it. That rabbit is so spicy and fat. It must be delicious. The blue veins on Lu Chongshan's forehead twitched. Get to the point. Yin Rui touched her forehead helplessly. One was a man of few words, and the other was a chatterbox. Couldn't they balance each other out? Oh. Lu Jingli recalled the rabbit and then continued. Then it rained halfway. So we went to Mr. Song's place to hide from the rain. After that, Xiaobao had some contact with Mr. Song. Mr. Song probably discovered Xiaobao's talent in painting, so he took the initiative to take Xiaobao as his apprentice. Okay. Yin Rui nodded repeatedly. All right. After hearing Lu Jingli's explanation, Yin Rui and Lu Chongshan were shocked. Neither of them had expected that Xiaobao could become Song Jin's disciple because of Ning Shi. At night, after returning to the old house, Yin Rui was still thinking about this matter. Seeing that Yin Rui was distracted, Lu Chongshan asked, "What are you thinking about?" "I'm thinking about Xiaobao's apprenticeship. It's actually because of that woman," Yin Rui muttered. Lu Chongshan frowned. "What do you mean by that woman? Isn't it just a coincidence?" "It's all because our Xiaobao is talented." Yin Rui shook her head and said, "That's too much of a coincidence. Don't you think that ever since that woman appeared, everything in our family has been going well?" There was no need to talk about Tingxiao's transformation, especially Xiaobao. His body and mind were getting better and better, and he was slowly becoming like a normal person. No, how could he be like a normal person? Our Xiaobao is even smarter than Tingxiao was back then. Now, Xiaobao actually managed to invite Song Jin, who was originally impossible to invite, to be his first teacher. I heard that the teacher who taught Xiaobao martial arts is also a very powerful person. Chapter 1035. At this point, Yin Rui paused and looked at her husband. Is all of this really just a coincidence? Over the past 5 years, Tingxiao and Xiaobao's situation hasn't changed at all, but it changed as soon as this woman appeared? Lu Chongshan pinched his eyebrows. What are you trying to say? I'm thinking of the 8 characters that Master Xianjing calculated for Ning Shi. Unparalleled fortune, bringing prosperity to one's husband and family, a life of many children, many blessings. Now it's coming true step by step, Yin Rui said excitedly. Lu Chongshan was stunned. I told you not to believe in these things. Although that was what he said, Lu Chongshan's expression was slightly deep in thought. In the evening, Ning Shi invited Gong Shangza, Han Momo, and Xiao Weilan to have dinner together to celebrate. After returning to the apartment, Ning Shi took a shower and put on a velvet bunny one-piece pajamas in a good mood. Then she sat cross-legged on the bed and began to calculate the accounts. Recently, the studio's profits had been very impressive. The figure had exceeded 10 million yuan. Compared to ordinary people, she was now a little rich woman. Ningxi planned that it was almost time to buy a small villa. Although the place she was living in was very private, it was a place arranged by the company after all. There were still a lot of people who knew that she lived here. It was inconvenient for Lu Tingxiao to come here usually, so it was better to buy a house by himself. It was the home of her own, after all. Neither the small shabby house arranged by Starlight Entertainment nor the high-end apartment building arranged by Shengshi Entertainment belonged to her. Of course, the most important thing was that it was convenient for her to keep a mistress in her house. After careful planning, Ningxi had basically put the matter of buying a house on the agenda. She was going to ask Lu Tingxiao's opinion and see what he liked. Of course, there was also Xiaobao. Seeing that it was still early, Ningxi was going to make a lunch for Xiaobao. As soon as she walked into the kitchen, she remembered that she had run out of soy sauce. So she took off her apron and went to buy soy sauce. Because the convenience store was not far downstairs, Ningxi didn't change her clothes. She took the change and the key downstairs. Boss, give me a bottle of soy sauce. Ningxi leaned on the counter and put the change on it. Oh, okay. In the convenience store, a lady boss in her 40s or 50s handed a bottle of soy sauce to Ningxi and looked her up and down, looking a little displeased. It's so late. Why did your mother let a little girl like you out to buy soy sauce? Ningxi was speechless. It's okay, boss. My house is nearby. Ningxi tied her hair into 2 ponytails and wore cartoon one-piece pajamas. She looked like a 17-year-old minor. No wonder the boss misunderstood her. You can't even get close. You're such a cute little girl. What if you meet a bad guy? Next time, don't come out alone at night. The lady boss reminded him. Ningxi nodded. I know, thank you, sister. Hearing Ningxi call her sister, the proprietress beamed with joy and gave her a colorful lollipop. Take it and eat it. Thus, Ningxi held a bottle of soy sauce in her hand and a lollipop in her mouth that the lady boss had given her. She skipped happily towards her home. Just as he was thinking about what to cook for little Bowsy later, a person suddenly appeared in front of him. Chapter 1036. It was a strange woman. She was wearing a tight black nightsuit and had the same aura as Feng Xiaoxiao, a killer's aura. Brother Shi, Uncle Feng wants to see you. The woman looked at her and said expressionlessly. At this moment, Ningxi, damn it, she really met a bad guy. She had never expected that she would meet Feng Jin's men when she went downstairs to buy soy sauce. Now the only weapon she had to defend herself was a bottle of soy sauce. The woman said and opened the black car door. Please. Ningxi's brain worked quickly. The next second, she tilted her head and asked in confusion while biting her lollipop, Sister, who are you? You seem to have mistaken me for someone else. I'm not the brother Shi you mentioned just now. The woman froze when she heard this. You're not Tang Shi? Ningxi continued to bite her lollipop and shook her head innocently. Sister, I'm Rabbit. The woman looked her up and down and then glanced at the direction of Ningxi's apartment building, saying coldly, I saw you coming out of room 701. Ningxi scratched her head. I know sister in room 701. I often visit her, but she's a girl, not my brother. Looking at Ningxi's innocent look, the woman looked even more confused. Although she knew that Tang Shi was actually a woman and had seen the photos of Tang Shi in women's clothes, compared with Ningxi, the person in front of her didn't seem to be the same person. Could it be that she was really mistaken? Oh, it's so late. Pretty sister, I'm going home, or my mom will scold me. Bye-bye, Ningxi said as she skipped and ran forward. Behind her, the woman looked a bit hesitant. At this time, a voice rang in the woman's Bluetooth earpiece. Have you found her? Sorry, Uncle Feng. I seem to have mistaken the target of the mission. Mistaken the target? Yes, I've just sent a photo to your cell phone. Please check if this person is Tang Shi. A moment later, Feng Jin's voice came from the Bluetooth earpiece. The person in the photo is Tang Shi. The woman? Are you kidding me? Tang Shi? Tang Shi was her Prince Charming. It was one thing for a Prince Charming to turn into a woman. Now, she had actually turned into a silly little rabbit? Uncle Feng, sorry, it's my mistake. On the other end of the wireless earpiece, Feng Jin coughed lightly. Forget it. This time, it's not your fault. Let's continue with the mission. Yes. The woman hung up the wireless phone, moved, and instantly passed through a shortcut. She jumped over the wall and quickly chased after Ningxi. After a while, just when Ningxi finally left the woman's sight and rushed downstairs, a black shadow fell from the sky and landed in front of her. Looking at the person in front of her, Ningxi almost cursed it out loud. There was no need to ask. He must have been discovered. The woman stood in front of Ningxi with a cold look, looking her up and down like a penetrating ray. Brother Shi, you're really good at disguising. Even I was almost fooled by you. Ningxi, disguise my ass. This is how I am usually. This is my true form. I was originally a cute little rabbit, you stupid humans. Since then, no one dared to take over the house. What's going on? Of all the places, why did he have to bring her here? She was most afraid of ghosts. Brother Shi, please let go. Ningxi's hands were tied. She clung to the door with a few fingers and refused to let go. Not only that, but she also went back into the car. The woman exchanged a look with the driver and then dragged Ningxi out. There was a gun behind Ningxi's waist. She could only shake her legs and walk step by step toward the terrifying haunted house in front of her. Chapter 1038. The woman in black looked at Ning Shi's pale face and trembling legs, and a trace of suspicion flashed across her face. Ning Shi had been quite calm along the way, and even slept for a while, but when she arrived at the place, she didn't expect to be this scared. But it was no wonder that Ning Shi was scared. That person was really scary. The next second, with a creak, the woman in black pushed open the heavy door of the villa. The huge house was empty and gloomy. There were no lights in the house, only a few white candles on the wall. The candlelight swayed slightly, emitting a dim yellow light, making the whole house look even more eerie. Under the dim candlelight, the medieval oil paintings on the wall looked as scary as ghosts, and the sound of their footsteps echoed in the house. A clock, a bronze mirror, a silver candlestick, animal teeth and antlers. Under those extremely retro decorations, the whole house was like a scene of a horror film. It was as if a hideous and bloody face of a ghost would suddenly appear in the mirror, or a white-clothed hanging ghost would suddenly appear in front of her. Ning Shi walked forward step by step, her footsteps getting heavier and heavier, as if they were filled with lead. Behind her, the woman in black who was holding a gun against her saw that she was walking slower and slower, and her expression was clearly displeased. The woman in black was about to urge her, when the clock in the corner pointed to 12:00 with a click in the dead-silent house. Dong, dong, dong. The huge bell rang without warning, echoing in the empty house. Ghost. The moment the bell rang, Ning Shi's scream almost broke the roof. She almost rolled and crawled around, and then fell into the arms of the woman in black, trembling nonstop, obviously frightened. The woman in black, Brother Shi, actually afraid of ghosts? At this moment, she was simply beginning to doubt her life. The most frightening thing was that the image of a male god in her heart was collapsing step by step, shattering into pieces, until it turned into ashes. What male god? It was all fleeting clouds. It's just a bell. The woman looked expressionlessly at the little white rabbit in her arms. Bell sound. Scared me to death. Sob, sob, sob. After a long while, the woman finally brought Ning Shi to one of the rooms upstairs. It was just a few short steps, but Ning Shi felt like she had gone through 81 hardships. The woman in black originally thought that Ning Shi was deliberately stalling for time, but then she found that her forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. It seemed that she was really very scared, and it was definitely not an act. Until now, the woman in black had yet to recover from the shock of the Prince Charming's disillusionment. Seeing that the woman turned to leave after taking her to this room, Ning Shi immediately chased after her nervously and stopped in front of her. Where are you going? Please wait a moment. So you want to leave me here alone? No, don't go. What am I supposed to wait for? Can't you wait with me? Aren't you afraid that I'll sneak away? My mission ends here. No matter how Ning Shi begged, the other party still left heartlessly. Fuck. Let's see if you can still leave so easily after I change into men's clothes. Chapter 1039. The woman's footsteps got further and further away, until they disappeared. The entire house was silent, and not a single sound could be heard. Every time she moved her body, that extremely subtle sound would be magnified infinitely and played back in her ears in horror. It was already so scary when they were together. Being alone was simply torture to her. Ning Shi took a deep breath and recited from the Great Compassion Mantra to the Heart-Cleansing Mantra to the Diamond Sutra, all the way to the core values of socialism. She then looked around the room to distract herself. There was only a white candle lit on the dressing table in this room, and the light was even dimmer. She could vaguely see that the overall style of the room was the same as the outside. The only difference was that it was more eerie and scary. Moreover, she realized that this room was very big. From the structure and layout, it should be the master bedroom. Thinking of this, Ning Shi, who was originally standing at the door, jumped away from the door and hid in a corner far away. Didn't the legendary woman who committed suicide hang herself at the door of the master bedroom? On the beam where she was just standing. She finally knew their conspiracy. They were prepared to scare her to death. Some things could not be overcome in a lifetime, such as Ningxi's fear of ghosts. When she was still with her adoptive parents, her grandmother valued boys over girls and tried to throw her away many times. One of them was to bring her to a mass grave and leave her alone. She stayed there alone for 2 days and 2 nights. She still did not dare to recall the situation at that time. This also caused her to be very afraid of ghosts even after she grew up. Even though she knew that it was just an illusory thing, she could not overcome it. She also never watched any movies related to ghosts. Ningxi took a deep breath, calmed her mind, and tried to untie the rope on her wrist. Unfortunately, the other party used a professional method to tie the rope, and the material of the rope was also very special, so she couldn't untie it at all. She dragged her weak legs around the room and looked around. The only door and window were all tightly sealed. Through the mirror on the dressing table, Ningxi saw a pale face. It was her, like a funerary object buried deep in a gloomy and terrible grave. Ningxi's face was pale and pale. Now she did not even have the energy to think about Feng Jin's intention of locking her here. In the entire room, the only place that made her feel better was probably the bed. Ningxi's legs were so weak that she couldn't even walk. She slowly moved to the bed, then hugged a pillow and curled up into a ball. Time ticked by. Not a single person came. There was not a single sound. It was so quiet that it was as if she was the only living person left in the world. Until even the candles on the dressing table burned out, extinguished. The room darkened. The taut thread in Ningxi's body seemed to break. The thing that she had suppressed in the deepest part of her mind surged out like a ferocious beast in the darkness. The little girl's hand was released mercilessly. She waited and waited, but all she heard was the terrifying cries of wild beasts coming from the forest. She ran and ran, but she suddenly tripped. When she looked down, she saw a white leg bone. She was lost in the forest full of graves. She waited from night to day and from day to night. She waited for a long time, but there was no one. Chapter 1040. Following that, the scene in her mind changed again, switching to a sunny afternoon. There was an ear-piercing sound of a car engine, and she felt a piercing pain in her abdomen. Her child blood. His pupils and his mind were filled with the color of blood. My child. Dead. Your child is dead. He was born a dead baby. So what if he's not dead? Do you still want to raise this bastard? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Just a moment ago, he was mischievously moving in my palm. Not a bastard. He's not a bastard. Her child is not a bastard. From the moment she knew of his existence, she had been looking forward to his birth with love and hope. He's her child. He's her baby. Give me back my baby. Give me back. The woman's mournful voice kept echoing in her mind. She knew that it was her own voice. Finally, the next second, she finally saw the child. Finally saw her baby. In the cold morgue, a small, purplish baby, who was no longer breathing. Her child, her baby, is dead. He's really dead. Creak. In the deathly stillness of the graveyard, there was a sudden soft sound. It was the sound of a locked door being pushed open. Ta, 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 accompanied by the sound of leather shoes stepping on the floor. A slender figure pushed open the door and walked in. The man held a candle in his fair hand. Under the hazy candlelight, his beautiful face was illuminated. His light gray eyes, coupled with his silver hair, made him look like a ghost. The man walked step by step towards the bed in the room, approaching the dark shadow curled up at the head of the bed. Finally, the man stood in front of the bed, the candle in his hand illuminating the small shadow on the bed. There was a girl on the bed, hugging a pillow in her arms. Her whole body was drenched in sweat, and the bangs on her forehead were dripping with sweat as her body trembled. No, don't, child, don't. The girl's mind seemed to be in a trance. Only when she sensed the approaching light and the approaching footsteps of the man did she finally slowly raise her head. Using her pair of dark eyes, she stared blankly at the approaching man. Tisk, you're still as useless as before. In the gloomy and terrifying air, the man's faint mocking voice rang out. Ning, she stared blankly at the person who came, still maintaining her original posture, did not move, did not speak, as if she had not recovered from the nightmare. At this moment, the girl was wearing furry pajamas, hugging a white pillow as she curled up at the head of the bed. Her body was shaking like a sieve, and she was staring at him with reddened eyes. The tear-stained look at the corners of her eyes was really. It was too good at stirring up the darkness in people's hearts. The man's gaze became darker and darker. Then, he slowly stretched out his hand towards the girl. That fair hand, so fair that even the meridians could be seen, slowly touched the girl's lips. In the next second, the man felt a sharp pain in his palm. Before he could get close, the girl had already fiercely bit down. Bright red blood flowed down the corner of the girl's mouth and the back of the man's hand. The man's expression changed abruptly. Pinching the girl's chin, he took out his own hand and pressed the girl onto the bed. His expression was frightening, and his tone was incomparably dangerous. Heh, who are you protecting your virginity for? Chapter 1041. Yunshin, what do you want? Ningxi finally came to her senses and asked the man. The man looked at his bloody hand, stuck out his tongue, and licked away the blood on his hand bit by bit. His eyes gradually turned scarlet, and he stared at her like a devil. He lowered his voice and said in her ear, I didn't want to do anything, but now. His tone made Ningxi's hair stand on end. I've already told you everything clearly. You saved my life once, and I've sacrificed myself for you countless times over the past 4 years. I don't owe you anything. Let's go our separate ways. What's wrong with you going your own way and me going mine? The man chuckled and pinched her chin. Ha, you don't owe me anything? My dear, not to mention that you're not dead. Even if you're dead and turned into ashes, you're still mine. If I go to hell, you'll go with me. This pervert. The man's expression was getting crazier and crazier, and he was on the verge of losing control. Not only was Ningxi tied up, but her body was also weak. She couldn't move at all, so she could only close her eyes and shout, You can't force yourself to do this. What's the point of doing this? Who said I like to eat melons? Ningxi choked. You. Even if you have my body, you can't have my heart. The man raised his eyebrows and twirled a strand of her hair. I only want your body. Who wants your heart? Fuck. Why didn't he play by the rules? When she was almost scared to death just now, she had been praying for someone to come quickly. Someone alive. As long as it was a living person. But now, looking at the guy in front of her, she might as well see a ghost. She must have prayed in the wrong way. Wait, don't you want to know why you chose Lu Tingxiao? Ningxi shouted again. Hearing this, the man's movements paused. His narrowed eyes were filled with a cold light. He looked at her with a smile that was not a smile and said, Tell me about it. Ningxi swallowed and heaved a sigh of relief. Perhaps it was because of the mention of Lu Tingxiao. The girl's expression seemed to soften and relax a little. It was something he had never seen before. The softness stimulated the violent genes in his body. Ningxi closed her eyes and said slowly, Yunshin, you know a lot about me. Whether it was when I was with my adoptive parents in the countryside, when I was taken back to the Ning family at the age of 18, or when I was abroad for 4 years, I had never been myself before I met Lu Tingxiao. Because I was afraid of being abandoned and sent away, I tried my best to please my adoptive parents and grandma. Because I was afraid of being hated and ostracized, I tried my best to please my biological parents and those celebrities. Because I liked him, I gave up everything to please Su Yin. In order to survive, I even buried myself. Speaking of this, Ningxi recalled her wandering years abroad, and a cold smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. But then, the coldness slowly melted. After returning home, at the beginning of the 4 years of darkness, the hatred of revenge, I was still muddle-headed for a time. Until I met that person. I met Lu Tingxiao. No one has ever treated me so well. He loved me, protected me, and doted on me. He was always suppressing and hurting himself in silence. He never forced me to do anything. I was only myself in front of him. Chapter 1042. Oh, that's all it takes to make you fall in love with him? The man's tone was full of sarcasm and disdain. He looked at Ningxi as if she was a silly woman who had been blinded by love. Ningxi took a deep breath and asked, "Okay, let me ask you, if you walked into a room and saw the person you like was drugged with aphrodisiac, wearing transparent pajamas, and lying on a kg-sized bed covered with red petals, what would you do?" She had asked Jiang Mai the same question before. Yunshin said, "Love, make love." Very good. This answer was very Satan, so evil. The corner of Ningxi's mouth twitched and she rolled her eyes. But Lu Tingxiao didn't do anything. That's the difference between you two. That's why I chose him. I won't take advantage of others when I'm at my most helpless. Yunshin, you don't know what love is. The man clicked his tongue. Are you sure this is love and not sexual dysfunction? Ningxi was so angry that her liver hurt. She couldn't bear it anymore. Get lost. You're the one with sexual dysfunction. The man chuckled hoarsely. Do you want to give it a try? I'm not in the mood to play tongue twisters with you. Let me tell you, it's okay to have a low EQ. You can study hard the day after tomorrow. I can teach you a killer move now. For example, at this moment, you should learn from Lu Tingxiao and be a gentleman to untie me and let me go. Ningxi said patiently. The man snorted and said, I never walk the path that others have walked. Ningxi was so angry that she almost broke her front teeth. Damn, her brain cells were all dead and her mouth was almost dry. Why didn't this bastard listen to her? Anything else you want to say? The man held his head and asked with interest as he watched her collapse. Ningxi said, Damn you. Talking to this fellow was a waste of energy, playing the lute to a cow. The man raised his eyebrows. Scolding me? Ningxi, haha, the only improvement was that she finally knew that this was a scolding. Why couldn't he improve a little in other areas? Darling, I'm advising you to return to my side for your own good. But if you continue to be with him, I'm afraid you'll be sad. The man said quietly. Ningxi rolled her eyes at him. Why would I be sad? Because I'll be a widow. You. Fuck. Ningxi was so angry that her heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys hurt. She blurted out, Don't be so arrogant. I don't care what grudges you have with Lu Tingxiao. My man is not easy to deal with. Your man. Yunshin's careless expression, which was like playing with a cat, suddenly turned into an overwhelming haze. Dear, you really know how to piss me off. Looking at the man's changing face, Ningxi immediately cursed in her heart. Damn it, I shouldn't have provoked him. I was so angry with him just now that I couldn't help it. At this time, the door was suddenly pushed open from the outside. Their attitudes were also very respectful, and they took the initiative to make a path for him. Two men, one as cold as ice and the other as evil as a ghost, walked towards each other step by step. As the two of them walked, the subordinates on both sides looked nervous, ready to fight at any time. Finally, the two stopped 10 steps away from each other. Their eyes met in the air with a boom, as if they had collided into each other. The silver-haired man curled his lips, and his scarlet eyes were spreading flames. He faintly looked at the man not far away from him, and the bloodthirst on his face became even stronger. We meet again. Chapter 1044. Lu Tingxiao said, Hand her over. The silver-haired man held his forehead as if he had just heard a funny joke. He laughed hoarsely. Heh, you intruded into my territory and asked me to hand her over. Boss Lu, you're funny. Lu Tingxiao looked at the time on his watch expressionlessly. 3 minutes. What he meant was obvious. He was giving him 3 minutes to hand her over. Once he was done with the formalities, he would ask for the troops. When the silver-haired man heard this, a strange smile suddenly appeared on his face. Then, he raised his eyebrows and said slowly, Lu Tingxiao, when she was at her lowest, most miserable, most desperate, and most painful time, I took her in and taught her all the survival skills and methods to protect herself. She and I belong to the same world. The world is so big, but in the end, she will still understand that this is the place that truly belongs to her. The moment the silver-haired man finished speaking, Lu Tingxiao's expression darkened. The murderous aura around him intensified, and he looked like a ghost. He was 100 times scarier than the ghostly man in front of him. Even Lu Tingxiao's subordinates looked at each other in dismay. As the night deepened, the thick, ink-colored clouds above slowly covered the last trace of the moon's afterglow. Darkness covered the sky and covered the earth. After some time, Lu Tingxiao's murderous expression instantly turned calm. He looked at the silver-haired man in front of him expressionlessly. 2 minutes. At the same time, the subordinates of both sides raised their guns. The snipers in the distance aimed at each other's men. Everyone tensed up, ready to fire at any moment. The atmosphere was on the verge of exploding. In a corner not far away, Feng Xiaoxiao wiped her sweat with difficulty. They're going to fight. Annie, who was beside her, was panicking. What do we do? What do we do? They're not really going to fight, are they? Sister Xiaoxiao, I just asked around. So Advisor Feng got his men to kidnap Brother Shi as well. How could Advisor Feng do this? To be honest, I didn't expect old Feng to be so simple and violent this time. What is he trying to do? Feng Xiaoxiao looked doubtful. Tang Ye's cold voice came from the side. Feng Jin's biggest taboo is having someone or something beyond his control affect Satan's judgment. For a man, a woman who can make him lose control is nothing more than getting what he wants. So old Feng is going to solve the problem at the source? Holy shit. Was Satan really going to take the opportunity to imprison little junior sister? You have to realize that this haunted house is like little junior sister's sealing technique. Little junior sister is most afraid of ghosts, so she'll definitely lose all of her battle prowess once she enters this place. Furthermore, her battle prowess isn't that high to begin with. Feng Xiaoxiao's lips twitched. Chapter 1045. Apart from that, the biggest reason for today's incident was that they finally got to see Lu Tingxiao's legendary underground force. Although this was only the tip of the iceberg, they could already foresee the colossus hidden under the iceberg. It was not inferior to their organization. We can't let this go on. I'll go and save Brother Shi. Only Brother Shi can stop them now, Annie said anxiously. Feng Xiaoxiao grabbed Annie, who was about to run away. What are you going to do? What can you do even if you go? You're so weak that you can't even open a door. Just stay here. I'll go. But what if boss blames me? Annie said worriedly. You're his direct subordinates, so you can't go. Although I'm also a member of the organization, it's just a part-time job. At least I have the original sin to back me up. Don't worry. Feng Xiaoxiao said and quickly ran into the house. The original sin was the world's largest assassin organization. Feng Xiaoxiao was loyal to the organization and was also a core member of the original sin. Tang Yi didn't stop Feng Xiaoxiao when he saw that she was going to save Brother Shi. He turned a blind eye to it. In the creepiest master bedroom on the second floor, when Feng Xiaoxiao unlocked the door with an iron wire and walked in, Ning Shi was still fighting against the glass window in front of her. The little girl was holding a sharp animal bone in her hand and poking it at the window. At this time, a force suddenly attacked her from behind, grabbing the 2 rabbit ears on the back of her clothes and pulling her away from the window. Then, she saw a black boot kicking at her. In the next second, with a loud bang, the window shattered. Ning Shi stared blankly at the window that she had been fighting for half a day without moving. Tears streamed down her face. Ouch! Third senior sister. You're finally here. Useless thing. Feng Xiaoxiao rolled her eyes at the girl speechlessly. She took out a dagger and untied the rope on Ning Shi's hand. I've already reminded you last time. Why are you getting weaker and weaker now? Ning Shi pouted and mumbled. That means that I'm living a carefree life, happy and sweet. The veins on Feng Xiaoxiao's forehead throbbed. How dare you stuff me with dog food? Believe it or not, I will kick you to death. Shiji, you're the one who can't bear to. Ningxi hopped over and hugged her, rubbing her chest. Feng Xiaoxiao looked at Ningxi's adorable, innocent, and lively appearance. She closed her eyes and revealed a pitiful expression. No wonder Shirlu has been looking like he has nothing left to live for. He must have been disillusioned by your current appearance. Ningxi blinked. Shirlu? Who is Shirlu? Code 16. The woman who kidnapped you. Feng Xiaoxiao replied. Oh, she, today. Maybe, probably. A little disillusioned. Cough, cough. Ningxi wiped her sweat. I think this woman used to have a crush on you. She was probably the one who fought for Feng Jin's mission. She wanted to take the opportunity to get close to Adonis, but in the end, TSK, Feng Xiaoxiao said with a really tragic expression. Ningxi muttered speechlessly, You're blaming me? Who asked her to kidnap me and leave me alone in the haunted house? I was almost scared to death. This is retribution. Chapter 1046. All right, that's enough. Go downstairs and find your man. They're about to start fighting. This is China, and it's under the emperor's feet. It's not a foreign country. It won't do either of them any good if they fight. Feng Xiaoxiao urged. Oh. Third senior sister, I'm leaving. Let's have a drink next time. Ningxi climbed onto the windowsill. Feng Xiaoxiao glanced at her worriedly. Can you do it? Why don't you take the stairs? That's so troublesome. Senior sister, can you stop looking down on my strength? It's only the third floor. Ningxi said as she climbed down the pipes speechlessly. Feng Xiaoxiao, who told you to be spoiled like a little white rabbit? How can I not worry? But, damn it, as a woman, she was a little envious. After all, she had been fighting and killing for so many years, and she had experienced more terrifying things than Ningxi. Of course, she was also less trusting than Ningxi men. She would never fall in love with such creatures. On the other side, Ningxi soon realized that she would suffer if she didn't listen to her senior sister. Halfway up, Ningxi's legs were still a little weak, so she fell down with a plop and let out a cry of ouch. In an instant, all the tensed gazes turned towards the foot of the wall. Then, everyone saw a cute girl crawl up from the grass and spit out a mouthful of grass. Her little face was scrunched up, and she was muttering something. Where did this rabbit come from? A man muttered in the crowd on Yunshin's side. Fuck. Big news. There's a woman in Boss's room. And it's a tender underage one. Oh my god. Boss is into this. The commotion in the crowd grew, and the expressions on their faces became more and more strange. Then, a cold female voice rang out. That's Tang Shi. Hearing Shirlio's words, everyone was speechless. Are you fucking kidding me? After seeing Ning Shi, Lu Tingxiao's expression changed instantly. All he could see was his wife. Yun Sheng glanced at Feng Xiaoxiao, who was standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window upstairs like an ice blade. Then, he looked at Ning Shi and said coldly, Come here. Ning Shi curled her lips and patted off the dust and grass on her body. Although she didn't speak, her expression was obvious. Why would I go to your place to die? Great Demon King. After getting up and seeing the familiar figure not far away, Ning Shi's gaze instantly turned to Lu Tingxiao with joy. This contrast in attitude was too obvious. At this moment, the three of them formed a triangle. Lu Tingxiao and Yun Shan stood opposite each other 10 steps away, while Ning Shi stood between them and under the wall not far away. Just as Ning Shi was about to run towards Lu Tingxiao without hesitation, an extremely gloomy voice rang in her ears. I'll give you one last chance. Think carefully before you make a decision. Decide who to follow. The extremely gloomy voice made Ning Shi freeze on the spot. She raised her head, looked at Lu Tingxiao with a cold face, and then looked at Yun Shan with a gloomy face. What to do? She wasn't struggling with the question of who to choose, because she didn't need to think about it at all. What if she went to Lu Tingxiao's place and Yun Shan got angry out of humiliation? Chapter 1047. This guy was a lunatic. Once he went crazy, he would do things regardless of the consequences. Even if this was the doorstep of the Emperor of Heaven, he would still dare to blow it up. Although this was a desolate suburb, it was still the territory of the capital after all. There were guns and cannons here. Once they made a noise, it would definitely alarm the people above. Even if Lu Tingxiao was the uncrowned king, the people above would turn a blind eye to him. But this was under the condition that both sides got along peacefully and mutually benefited each other. However, if he made such a big fuss under their noses and slapped their faces, how could the people above not be angry? Looking at the armed forces on Lu Tingxiao's side, which were even more terrifying than the regular army, Ningxi was shocked. She didn't expect that Lu Tingxiao would go to this extent and take such a big risk for her. Just as Ningxi was weighing and analyzing the pros and cons, there was a dead silence on the scene, and the two men's faces became more and more gloomy, especially Lu Tingxiao. Although he had the upper hand just now because of his identity as Ningxi's ex-boyfriend, Yunshin's words still hit the cage of the giant beast in his heart. As for Yunshin, he knew Ningxi too well after getting along with her for 4 years. At a glance, he knew what she was thinking and worried about at this moment, so he looked so gloomy. At this moment, a murderous aura suddenly came from not far away. In the crowd, a middle-aged man in a Chinese tunic suit suddenly appeared. A black muzzle in his hand suddenly pointed at Ningxi and instantly pressed the trigger. No one had time to notice it. The next second, bang, a gunshot rang out. Almost at the same time, another gunshot rang out. The first one was from Feng Jin, and the second one was from Yunshin. Everyone stared at the scene in shock. Even Feng Xiaoxiao, Tang Yi, Annie, and the rest did not expect Feng Jin to suddenly shoot. The cold air around the silver-haired man was overwhelming and confined Feng Jin. The latter was covered with cold sweat and covered his bleeding wrist. Just now, he had shot at Ningxi, but because his wrist was shot by Yunshin, he missed the target. It seems that I have to deal with the family affairs first. Yunshin raised his hand with a horrified expression. Immediately, all his subordinates put away their weapons and retreated like a tide. Seeing the other side suddenly retreat, Lu Tingxiao's side also relaxed. Then, they looked at Lu Tingxiao, waiting for instructions. Lu Tingxiao glanced coldly at the middle-aged man. After a while, he also raised his hand. In an instant, everyone on Lu Tingxiao's side retracted their weapons and retreated. The tense atmosphere of the night finally eased up. Seeing that the crisis was over, Ningxi hurriedly ran towards Lu Tingxiao. Seeing the girl running towards him step by step, Lu Tingxiao felt as if he had been redeemed from hell. She was walking towards him, because she fell down halfway and rolled on the ground in the bushes that hadn't been cleaned for a long time. Ningxi's clothes were already covered in dust, and the fluff on her clothes and hair were covered in weeds. She had completely changed from a little white rabbit to a little wild rabbit. However, the moment the girl threw herself into the man's arms and raised her little head with her eyes full of attachment, he knew that no matter how wild she was outside, she still belonged to someone. The moment the warm and soft body pounced on him, Lu Tingxiao instantly tightened his arms, and the empty heart that was whistling with cold wind was instantly filled. But even so, the smell of blood quickly spread in their mouths. At this moment, Lu Tingxiao's entire body was filled with dark negative factors. It was terrifying. However, Ningxi was not afraid at all. Instead, she took the initiative to wrap her arms around the man's neck and kiss him. Her fingers gently stroked his back. She even pushed against the man's chest and pressed him under her body. She lowered her head and put the bunny ear hat on her head. She didn't even have time to take it off. She leaned over and kissed the man's lips. The fear that had been suppressed in the haunted house for a long time was now all poured into this kiss. The man used one hand to steady the girl's body to prevent her from falling and responded to the girl's kiss even more passionately. The pilot in front looked at the two people behind him who were riding on top of each other. One was dressed in a meticulous black suit. The other was dressed in a cute and soft cartoon bunny costume. This was really terrible. Chapter 1050. Seeing the girl like this, Lu Tingxiao's heart ached so much that he wanted to kill someone. The air around him suddenly became cold. What did they do to you? Ningxi couldn't bear it anymore. She sobbed and complained with trembling shoulders. Bastards! They're not human. They asked me to meet anywhere but at the haunted house. You even left me waiting there alone. That house, is the rumored place where the female ghost hanged herself. It's so scary. I tried my best to leave, but my whole body was weak. I had no strength at all. They must have wanted to scare me to death. It's so sinister. Lu Tingxiao, he was almost scared to death by her too, so don't go, okay? I don't dare to stay alone. What if the female ghost comes back with me? Ningxi raised her little head pitifully and begged. Lu Tingxiao pinched his eyebrows, as if relieved of a heavy burden. At the same time, he showed a helpless expression. I won't go. Oh, are you sure? Ningxi ran to open the wardrobe to find clothes to change into and turned her head to ask worriedly. I'm sure. Ningxi confirmed it several times before she changed her clothes with relief. When she was changing her clothes, she sadly found that her favorite rabbit pajamas, the cutest, round, and furry rabbit tail on the butt was not small. Ningxi mourned for her tail for a while, and then saw Lu Tingxiao standing there like a gentleman with his back turned to him, waiting for her. I'm done. Okay. Lu Tingxiao turned around and touched the girl's head. Have a good rest. Will you stay with me? How can I not stay with you? Lu Tingxiao looked at the girl and sighed. Ningxi was finally relieved. On the warm and soft bed, the girl snuggled up in the man's arms. Probably because she was really scared tonight, she fell asleep after a while. However, the girl didn't seem to sleep well. She frowned in her sleep and her forehead was covered with cold sweat. Lu Tingxiao stayed by her side and comforted her softly. At about 6 o'clock in the morning, a series of heavy footsteps came from outside the door. Lu Tingxiao looked up and saw that it was his son. Then he raised his hand and gestured for Ningxi to keep quiet. Ningxi didn't fall asleep until 4 o'clock in the morning. Perhaps it was because little Baozi saw the unusual serious expression on his father's face, but he didn't fight for his father's favor. Instead, he laid on the edge of the bed and quietly looked at his mother. Your mother slept late last night. Don't wake her up. Lu Tingxiao lowered his voice. Little Baozi nodded obediently. He laid there and looked at his mama for a while before reluctantly leaving. He still had to go to school today, so he couldn't be late. Not long after, Little Bun returned with a writing board in his hand. On it were 2 words, share the burden. Lu Tingxiao was stunned. This child. She must have noticed that he seemed to have something on his mind, so she wanted to share his burden. The corner of Lu Tingxiao's mouth curled up slightly. When you're a little older. Xiaobao puffed up his cheeks. He had been working very hard to grow up. Recently, he had gained another 1 kilogram. Before going to school, Xiaobao ran over and gently gave Mama a goodbye kiss before leaving. Soon after Little Bun left, Lu Tingxiao quietly looked at the girl in his arms and didn't sleep. However, after a while, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. The girl's body temperature seemed to be getting higher and higher. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.